Are there constructive things that you can do to help restore a culture of life? Find out next on this edition of Life Matters with Brian Johnston. Brian Johnston is the Western Director of the National Right to Life Committee. He has served in many capacities while advocating for innocent lives, as California Commissioner on Aging, as Chairman of the California Pro-Life Council, on the board of the National Legal Center for the Medically Dependent and Disabled. He is an author and lecturer, a film producer, and commentator. And now, here's our host, Brian Johnston.
Well, welcome to Life Matters. I'm Brian Johnston, your host. And on Life Matters, we discuss life, culture, and the battle of ideas. Today, we're going to talk about a very important aspect of life and culture in the American world, and that is some of America's experiences in the past. America is an extraordinary place, but in America's rich history, we've made mistakes. There's been tremendous tragedies, and sometimes they're hard to face and fix. There's a saying by Churchill I thought was poignant. He said, "You can always trust Americans to do the right thing, eventually." And that's an important maxim. By the way, Churchill was half American. His mom was from the United States, so he had a great appreciation for the challenges that we face and we're still facing. I want to talk today about a tremendous sorrow, a scar really, on the American conscience, and that's the issue of slavery. And I want to talk about two specific Supreme Court decisions, because the Supreme Court is there to supposedly resolve issues. And there were two important decisions that were supposedly going to resolve very contentious issues in the United States. One, of course, is the issue of abortion. You know about that, Roe versus Wade, and we've discussed that at other times, and we'll be discussing it more. But I want to talk about a previous decision that was supposed to resolve the ongoing fight over slavery. And that decision in 1857 was the Dred Scott decision. I want to mention it because it didn't solve anything. In fact, it brought things to a head, and in a very bad way, because it created greater conflict. And by looking at it as a decision, you're going to see that there's tremendous parallels in what they did. The Supreme Court used its absolute power injudiciously, and it overruled the state's determinations. And it basically said that the matter is closed because this Supreme Tribunal can control human lives and can control what the states do. And this is very, very dangerous. It caused consternation in 1857. In the Dred Scott decision, both of these decisions, Dred Scott and Roe versus Wade, were based on an overwhelming 7-2 margin. In Dred Scott, the court said that a black slave was not a person under the law. In Roe, it said that a preborn child was not a person. In Dred, it said that the slave was property of the owner, of the caretaker. In Roe, that the child was property of the owner, the caretaker. In Dred, that the owner could keep or sell or kill. In Roe versus Wade, that the owner, the mother, could keep or kill the child. Others in Dred Scott were told that they could not impose their morals, and the same in Roe, that others, regardless of their concerns, could not impose their morals. Slavery, therefore, was made legal under Dred Scott, and abortion was proclaimed legal under Roe versus Wade. And the simple conclusion then, as it's been stated now, is if you are opposed to slavery, well, fine, just don't own one. And that, of course, is what's said about abortion. When we come back, I want to talk about how is this resolved. We have been simplified in our education. It's been distilled down to it was just the Civil War. No, there's so much more, because this is a battle of ideas, not of guns. And if you're not ready to understand the battle of ideas, there's no way you can win. So we'll come back and talk about how the Dred Scott decision was resolved and how the extraordinary man, Abraham Lincoln, was essential in bringing about that just resolution.
You're listening to Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Well, you know that Life Matters is about life, culture, and the battle of ideas. In no place is the battle of ideas more evident than in Hollywood, California. I have on with me Bo Bryant. He's the communications director for the Life Fest Film Festival. Hey, Bo.
Hey, Brian. How are you doing?
Great. Hey, tell us about Life Fest, what it is, and what happens.
Okay, so Life Fest is the film festival dedicated to showcasing films that affirm the intrinsic worth of human life and the profound significance of each life. So Life Film Fest is based in the heart of the entertainment industry. It's in Hollywood, California, and it takes place every year. So this year, it takes place from May 4th to May 7th, 2017. So that's the first weekend in May. And really what it is, it's about bringing together experienced Hollywood professionals with those just starting out in the industry so that we can really showcase films that affirm life culture, and really engage in the battle of ideas.
Awesome. That is excellent. How can folks get in touch with Life Fest?
We're always looking for volunteers. We're looking for people to sign up, or if you have a film that you'd like to submit and have it shown there, you can find all of our information at lifefilmfest.com. So that's lifefilmfest.com.
That's Life Film Fest, and we hope to hear more from you, Bo, and Life Film Fest. Thanks a lot. Talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Find out about the exciting cultural change impacting Hollywood. Go to lifefilmfest.com. And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Well, hello and welcome back to Life Matters. I'm your host, Brian Johnston. As you know, in Life Matters, we discuss life, culture, and the battle of ideas. You're in a battle. You may not realize it, but that battle has been raging before you ever arrived on the scene, and that battle is going to only continue and become greater and greater in your presence. You are going to witness more and more ideas being thrown around every time you turn on a radio, a television, every time you boot up a computer. You're actually being inundated with ideas, and ideas that have very specific purposes and conclusions. And those ideas are battling for predominance in your mind. If you're not ready for this battle, you're going to lose. You're just going to lose. And you'll just go along with the flow. As they say, there's one thing about even a corpse will go with the flow. So you want to make sure that you're vibrant and alive and understanding the ideas that are being tossed around. I believe that today we're going to be talking about one of the more important ideas. Everything we talk about in Life Matters is very, very important at this moment. We're here to equip you. I think you're going to look back at this and say, wow, I remember hearing that. And the reason I say that is this is a broadcast from the future. And what's in the future? The overturn of Roe versus Wade. Roe versus Wade was a decision in 1973 by the U.S. Supreme Court. It struck down the laws of every state. Every state in this nation had laws that said the child in the womb is vulnerable and needs protection. In states like California, New York, Massachusetts, Colorado, those four had what were called liberal abortion laws. And what that means is that after 20 weeks, you couldn't kill that kid. That's against the law. Before 20 weeks, give or take, in New York, I think it was 21 weeks. Before that, you needed a darn good reason. That's how they would, they're just better. And you know those reasons, by the way. You hear them all the time. What about rape? What about incest? What about the life of the mother? What about severe fetal deformity? So these quote-unquote reasons were tossed out as justifying ending that child's life before the 20-week or 21-week magic marker margin, and that was basically an arbitrary distinction that the lawmakers made in those states. Again, in 73, every state had declared that this child needs to be protected. If you don't know how those laws came to pass, you need to listen to our program or read any book on Horatio R. Storer, a great American doctor and the father of gynecology, believe it or not, but he's the one that took it upon himself to make sure that children were protected in the several states. He said that the child was his second patient. He understood this was a human being that needed protection. So that's why all the laws were there. Roe said you can't pass those laws. As you know, since 73, the Right to Life movement arose and said, no, if we can kill children because we don't want them or for any of these other reasons, then it's going to get only worse for our culture and our society. We're not a just culture because we're not defending the self-evident truth that this is a human life. So today, I said this is a program from your future. It's preparing you for your future. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to look to the past. The past is prologue, and probably our best example of someone who has had to deal with a great injustice in our nation is a great, great president. Many see him as one of our greatest, and that's Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln did and had incredible insight, incredible fortitude, and incredible commitment to bring about a change to our nation that was needed, and in the face of those who did not want to see it, he helped them do that. He did not want war. He did not bring war. And if you know real history, you know that wasn't the war that actually brought an end to the division and the slavery issue, that it was actually the very careful and difficult battle of passing the 13th and subsequent amendments regarding the slavery issue. And if you haven't seen it, again, we're a program on culture. I recommend the film Lincoln by Steven Spielberg. I would highly recommend that film. Watch it a couple of times. You can see how the political process works, and you can see the brilliance of Abraham Lincoln. When we come back, we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, I want to equip you to go a little bit deeper. If you went to a public school, even if you went to a private school, if you got the standard American history test regarding Lincoln and how he approached the slavery issue, how our nation approached the slavery issue, you probably got a very broad brush, and it's in the details that you're going to understand what he did, what it is we're going to have to do, because what will happen after Roe is overturned is that it will come back to the states. We're in a very similar, but perhaps an inverted process, where we will go back state by state to protect children, and many are able to do that in many states. States like mine, California, and perhaps yours, Oregon's another one, Washington, Massachusetts, New York. It's going to be tougher, but we're going to see some laws that are going to push back and really bring a legal end to the legal Holocaust that we've been witnessing since '73. But you have to understand how that's done. It's not done simply by asserting this is what you want done, or this is what your church teaches. We have to be much more effective as our founders and as Mr. Lincoln was in asserting self-evident truths and making sure that the laws and the civic process reflected that. So when we come back, I'm going to give you a shocker, and that's this, that Abraham Lincoln was not, I repeat, Abraham Lincoln was not an abolitionist. Now that's a stunner, and you'll understand more when we come back. You're listening to Life Matters, where we talk about the battle for life, for culture, and the battle of ideas. We'll be back in just a moment.
Life Matters continues after this.
Well, you know that Life Matters is about life, culture, and the battle of ideas. In no place is the battle of ideas more evident than in Hollywood, California. I have on with me Bo Bryant. He's the communications director for the Life Fest Film Festival. Hey, Bo.
Hey, Brian. How are you doing?
Great. Hey, tell us about Life Fest, what it is and what happens.
Okay, so Life Fest is the film festival dedicated to showcasing films that affirm the intrinsic worth of human life and the profound significance of each life. So Life Film Fest is based in the heart of the entertainment industry. It's in Hollywood, California, and it takes place every year. So this year, it takes place from May 4th to May 7th, 2017. So that's the first weekend in May. And really what it is, it's about bringing together experienced Hollywood professionals with those just starting out in the industry so that we can really showcase films that affirm life culture, and really engage in the battle of ideas.
Awesome. That is excellent. How can folks get in touch with Life Fest?
We're always looking for volunteers. We're looking for people to sign up, or if you have a film that you'd like to submit and have it shown there, you can find all of our information at lifefilmfest.com. So that's lifefilmfest.com.
That's Life Film Fest, and we hope to hear more from you, Bo, and Life Film Fest. Thanks a lot. We'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Find out about the exciting cultural change impacting Hollywood. Go to lifefilmfest.com. And now back to more about life, culture, and the battle of ideas with Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters. Again, this is your broadcast from the future. It's equipping you for the battle that's going to be swirling around you shortly. I want you to understand how to put your hands to the plow, how you can be effective in advocating for those who need you to advocate for them. If you believe in the right to life, if you believe that unborn children should be given some consideration under the law, in California, they have none. In fact, in California, the state of California funds the abortion industry and its infrastructure, not just paying the guy with the blood on his rubber gloves, the person doing the actual severing up of that child. It actually funds the catchment. That's a Planned Parenthood term for bringing young women to their facilities. They have to be marketed to. There's advertising involved. Well, you pay for that with your tax money. The energy bill, the Edison and PG&E bill for that building, you pay for that tax money. The staff, you pay for that. Well, even people who aren't pro-choice, they're thinking, well, why do we have to pay for it? You know, there's people who believe that you should own whatever car you want. They're pro-choice in terms of the brand of car you get, but that doesn't mean the government should fund it. And yet that's what's happening with the abortion industry. It's an industry in California and some of the several states that is actually funded by the government. So we're going to have to change that if we're going to bring an end to what's happening all around us. Just having an alternative is not enough. If it's a government-sponsored industry, we have to get the government to wake up, and those who rule the government, if they're not going to change their mind, you have to be able to change their membership, and that's why you're called to be a citizen. And Lincoln knew that. That's what Lincoln did. So in order to understand Abraham Lincoln, I'm going to suggest, if you haven't before, some of them, it's a long read, but what brought Abraham Lincoln to national attention and to history's attention was the Lincoln-Douglas debates. And he debated Senator Douglas in an attempt to unseat him as he challenged him for the senatorship, U.S. senatorship from Illinois. Abraham Lincoln was a congressman and considered kind of a backwoods, down-home storyteller and a man of little repute. And yet, those debates launched him, and he was an incredibly wise man, and his country folk wisdom elevated him to the place of greatness that he has. And it's not merely on Rushmore. If you read these debates, and they were meant to be read, not enough people could get into the various meeting rooms. They didn't have radio or television, but there were newspapers throughout the nation, not just in Illinois, but throughout the nation that published these debates. And they were lengthy. They were 2 or 3 hours in length. And all of the arguments for slavery or for not ending slavery, because the very clever Senator Douglas, who represented Illinois, asserted that he was not pro-slavery. He simply wanted to leave that option available. And of course, that's what you hear from people on abortion. They're not for abortion. They're simply pro-choice, something you could choose. We don't want to end abortion. There's nothing wrong with it that we should end it. I wouldn't get one personally. There seems to be some moral question about it, but I'm not going to deny it to others. That's pro-choice on abortion. And that's how he was on slavery. He was pro-choice on slavery. He was one of the best debaters of his time. If you don't have much time, the one debate I would read, if you can wiki this and get off Wikipedia if need be, and that's the debate at Alton, Illinois. Alton was the final debate. This was an interesting situation that ultimately Lincoln lost that election, but he so powerfully repudiated the seeming logic, and it is compelling logic, for those who said, look, let's just leave it alone, let bygones be bygones. Up until that moment in history, you need to know that the slavery issue was very much in the back burner of every American's mind. The founders, at the founding, it wasn't just there were some slave states. Did you know that America's founding, 8 of the 13 states were pro-slavery? That's right. There were 8 slave-holding states and 5 free states, those colonies that became states. And this was a point that Douglas made to great effect against Lincoln. And he pointed out that, Mr. Lincoln, because of your pro-life, I might say, anti-slavery arguments, you're causing division, and you're going to cause a civil war. There had already been violence, a lot of violence. There had been riots led by both pro- and anti-slavery, and in Illinois, but in many other states, border states, very violent riots. A relative of Douglas died. His brother died in a riot in Alton, Illinois, several years earlier. So this was very poignant, and people knew that. It was driving home that issue, that he actually died at the hands of anti-slavery people. And he was saying, look, and I'm not anti-slavery, I'm not pro-slavery, but people are dying unnecessarily. And Lincoln, you're saying this is unconstitutional, but the founders themselves, many of them owned slaves. How dare you call it unconstitutional? How dare you assert these things about the humanity of a slave and cause these problems when you're causing division? You're just being difficult and religious. And of course, Lincoln never did say, I'm going to put my religion on you. He never framed it as a matter of religion per se. He talked about natural law and self-evident truths. He had a very powerful comeback, and I'd like to read it to you. When he was accused of these things, it was correct. See, Douglas was asserting, at the founding of our nation, it was not just the South, as I mentioned. There are many states, New York and New Jersey actually allowed slavery in 1789. But this is what Lincoln said. The founding fathers could not confirm that right. They meant simply to declare that right so that the enforcement of it might follow as fast as circumstances should permit. In other words, they couldn't pass such laws in 1789 at the founding of our nation and the founding of the Constitution. They couldn't pass anti-slavery laws, but the sentiment was there. You may not know, but Benjamin Franklin was a member of an anti-slavery group. Many of the founders hated slavery, but knew that there weren't the votes to pass it. The Whig Party and the subsequent Republican Party, the Whig Party wanted to halt the growth of slavery. The Republican Party, when it was founded in 1856 in Michigan, and as you know, it grew dramatically, and Lincoln became its bearer, its standard bearer. It was committed to ending slavery through the civic process. And specifically, at the debate, that same debate in Alton, Illinois, Douglas said, look, you're causing riots, you're causing problems. Look what happened at Harper's Ferry and the killings there and the grabbing of military facilities and the attempted slave revolt. He was referring, of course, to John Brown's Harper Ferry effort. Now, that was an abolitionist effort, and there were many different abolitionist activities. Abolitionism at that time was causing problems because it was merely the emotional frustration with slavery. It was people doing whatever they felt they could or might want to do. They would just do things against slavery, and it was causing disarray. It was causing problems. Abraham Lincoln responded, and it was quite profound. I was stunned when I read it. He said, Mr. Douglas, you will find there was not a single Republican in their midst at Harper Ferry. How could he have known their registration? I was wondering, how could he know their party registration? For one simple reason. The Republican Party existed for one simple reason, to bring an end to slavery by the use of civics, by the use of the vote, by the use of educating and motivating people based on self-evident truths, not that they have to follow the teaching of a particular church, not by merely complaining or marching in the street or doing some sort of civil disobedience. They were going to win by convincing people to go to the ballot box and to vote out pro-slavery laws, to vote in anti-slavery laws, to vote in pro-life, pro-human being individuals into office, i.e., those are Republicans. Now, there's a lot more to that history. I could say a lot more. If you do want to do more research, go to our show notes. But the reality is the Republican Party was founded to give voice to anti-slavery sentiment and to equip them for the civic realm and the battle of ideas that is civics. Civics is the battle of ideas. Ideas and laws are very close. The difference is that laws are ideas that are enforced. In order to win those, you must ensure you're involved in the battle of ideas properly, and that's what civics is for. The Republican Party was founded to do that and to stop the mayhem that John Brown and the abolitionists were bringing. There was mayhem and confusion, and even many of those abolitionists did not understand what Lincoln was doing. They didn't take the time to understand how laws are made and how our nation is structured to allow people to make laws, to address injustice through the legal process. That was why the Republican Party was founded. I'm very proud of the Republican Party. I believe that it is the Republican Party in its commitment to innocent human life today that's going to allow the end to legalized abortion on demand as we know it. If you're involved in the battle of ideas, you need to be equipped. I want to encourage you, if you're in any place in the United States, to go to the website for NRLC, National Right to Life Committee, and there you can find your state affiliate, and you can plug in locally in helping to make sure that the right to life, which is a pivotal and important idea, it's really in many ways all that we talk about here, but we talk about the many ways it reflects on our society. The right to life, when it's gone, we see things like not just abortion, but euthanasia. We see the use of human beings in medical experimentation. We see cloning. We see the abuse of the human person on a number of levels because the law no longer protects those that cannot protect themselves. By reinstituting the right to life, we are working at giving back that foundation. As Lincoln said, it was the founding fathers that merely allowed us, because they declared the right, they allowed us to pursue its enforcement as soon as feasible. And that's going to be more and more feasible when Roe is overturned, when you're equipped to do it by plugging into the civic process, plugging into your local Right to Life group. In California, it's the California Pro-Life Council, but nationally, NRLC.org. And you can find out how you can be better equipped for some of the very difficult ideas that are coming your way and how you can make a difference. Thanks for listening.
Learn more about everything in today's show online at lifematters.life, where you'll find all the resources you need to protect life. Subscribe to the Life Matters podcast, where we have even more information on this and all the life issues. Go to lifematters.life to subscribe. Listen to more Life Matters, Saturdays at 1 p.m. right here on K-Bright.